Welcome back, guys. Now we are on to process video number 1 for my latest 10 handmade 1 homemade card kit series, and we are going on with card number 1. I did a lot of prep work for these cards just so you don't have to see me like cut my papers and do a few stamping and embossing. But with this one, I'm going to use 3 pattern papers. Now I'm going to go back to the way I do some little subtle designs on the edge of my paper, and that is to use my sewing rotary oh shoot, I forgot what it's called already. It's a tracer. That's what it is. It's a rolling tracer, and I'm using my ruler just to help me to guide me along the edges, and then that will just give little dots on my paper, and I really like how that goes. I know that there are dies that would create those, but I don't have them, and I think this one is just fine. So that pink pattern paper actually has very subtle lines on it, but I decided to add some stamping to it. So I just added a bunch of the smiley face stamp on there because the sentiment that I'm going to be using here is "You make me smile." And I did cut out the brown pattern paper, kind of a wood grain design, and cut a scallop square with that using the die that I had wanted to use for this particular kit. And then I'm wrapping some of my twine, some purple twine there, and then I'm going to put that "You make me smile" there. I did heat emboss the sentiment with white embossing powder, and then I'm just adding this with some foam adhesive. Now, as you can see, when I added my sentiment, it left some room on the top, and that's totally fine with me because I do want to use up the flowers that I pulled out for this particular kit. And then so I'm going to be just kind of layering them up. This is the first time that I opened this box, and so I didn't really know the kinds of flowers that it had in there, so I'm going to be playing around just to kind of see how I wanted to be layered, and it didn't have the right amount of stuff that I wanted, so I'm pulling out some flowers, some other paper flowers from my stash, and kind of seeing what will work best. And I did find this small pink flower, and I thought that will work well, but I'm kind of auditioning a few more little flowers just to see, and then I end up with a white and a pink to go with that yellow one. And then at first I wanted to use up the rhinestones that came with the flower kit, but then I just decided to use some more a white button and some more of the twine, just so that there's repetition with the twine, and it actually also kind of creates a visual triangle because the bigger wrap twine was on the bottom, and then that button with the twine will be on the top. And basically that is my card number 1. Okay, so on to card number 2. This one is going to be a horizontal card, and again, I did a few prep on it. I decided to pull out the, it's more kind of a copper color embossing powder from American Crafts, and that's what I used to, so basically I stamped the word "smile" 3 times, and then I heat embossed it. And then I also stamped a kind of secondary sentiment block which says "Sending you a," and I did that on a black cardstock with white embossing powder. I did die cut a these balloon hearts from waffle flower, and I used the pattern papers from the 6x6 pad to do that, and I cut out 6 of them, and then I'm adding some twine so that I can connect the I added some washi to connect the twine to it. I am losing my thought here. So that's basically what I'm doing here, and then I'm going to adhere that. I'm creating 2 clusters of 3 balloons on my layout. And I added some foam adhesive, just some little square foam adhesive to that, so that it will be raised and it will look more realistic that it's actually floating. And I'm just kind of making sure that I will be able to have enough room on the bottom to create my border strip. And then I'm going to be adhering like a regular size glue dot on there, and I'm specifically or strategically putting the glue dot over there where I'm going to be hiding that part of the adhesive with the border Smile. And then I'm going to be trimming that off, and then I will be trimming the black one and putting that on the center, and that will basically be it. The only thing that I will add to this layout is I decided to kind of add a little bit shimmer to the balloons because it was needing something, and so I will use my Nuvo Glimmer shimmer pen so that I could add some shimmer to the balloons. And I have to say, it's been a while since I've used my shimmer pen, but I love how it just gives that little bit of shine to any surface that you add to it. So of course I'm going to set this aside to dry before touching the card, and that's card number 2. And so some of these cards will only be 4 inches in width because I did use the 12 by 12 cardstock to create my card bases. So they're about 5.5 to 4 inch instead of the regular A2, which is 4 1/4. But that's totally fine with me. I think that a little bit shorter in width is not a big deal. Well, for me anyways. And so with this one, I'm going back to the scallop square, and I did cut 3 with pattern papers and also 3 with white because I wasn't sure how I wanted to do this. I wanted those pattern papers to go onto the blue dot pattern paper, but there was just too many patterns, and so I needed to break it down. Now I thought that maybe I would add the white as the inside of it, but I actually liked it better when the pattern was framed with the white scallop. So that's basically how I'm going to end up making these. I'm going to trim the scallop off of the squares and the pattern paper squares, and then use the whites as my frame for the patterns. And I did create 3 of them here, and I'm just going to kind of put them on different edges of the blue paper, and then I'm going to trim the edges of it so that it's just one big rectangle. And with these squares, I wanted to house my flowers, so I'm going to put 2 sets of flowers on the card, and then on the last square I'm going to put my title. So when I created the card bases, the card bases has the length of it was 5.5, so I would have a 1 inch strip of cardstock left. So I used the purple one and just basically stamped and heat embossed Sending You a Smile. I think I was able to do 4 or 5 of them in the strip, the leftover strip that I had, and so I just did that just to kind of have some sentiments kind of ready for me to use when I needed it. So that's where that Sending You a Smile border came from. So now I'm ready to adhere my card, or my layered pattern paper on the front of the card, and so now I'm adhering the flowers, and then I will finish this off with some rhinestone, and that will be my card number 3. I hope that you guys have been enjoying the cards that I've been making so far, and that you like this series. If you do like it, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Like I said before, I usually divide my process videos into 2, so you're going to see the first 5 here, and then on the next video that I will post, you will see the next cards number 6 through 10. So with this one, I wanted to do a shaker card. It's been a while since I've done a shaker card, and so I wanted to kind of maximize the scallop square, and create some frame and some shaker. So I actually had pre-cut 2 scallop squares the same size and 2 different types of pink pattern paper, and then I also cut out the same size scallop square, with some acetate, which is basically, I found some packaging from another project that I had, and I just used the packaging on that because it's basically acetate. So I'm creating a frame for one of the squares, because that will basically create the window that you will see, where you will see the shaker elements. And so I'm using just mini glue dots to create or to add the acetate on the back side of my frame. And because they're all the same size squares or scallop squares, I wasn't too worried that it wouldn't fit or match. And then I just added some fun foam. I just used one layer of fun foam. I guess you can use two if you really wanted to make this thick, but I wasn't sure if I will end up having to mail this, and so I didn't want it to be too bulky. And then I used some sequins mix from, oh, I can't remember anymore. But anyways, I used some mix and of a mix of sequins to add to my shaker. And then I also heat embossed, stamped and heat embossed, sending you a smile sentiment onto a pattern paper. It looks like solid color on the video, but it's actually a very subtle lined paper. And then I'm wrapping some more of my twine, and basically that will finish off the shaker card. And it's been a while since I've done a shaker. I think it's been, I don't know, more than 6 months, and I really like the effect of it, and I just keep on forgetting, because I think for me it just has a lot more steps than your regular card, and so I normally don't do it. But because I was doing the frame already, I figured that I would kind of continue on with that design. And so with this one, instead of making a shaker card, I would just create a frame. And so basically that's gonna be how this 5th card will turn out, where I'm going to do the same steps that I did with my shaker, but instead of, again, using an acetate and putting sequins, I'm just creating a frame. So I'm going to go back to a square nesting die that I have. You know what? Now that I have created a lot of these cards, or I've created all the cards rather, I should have just put this square with my initial product kind of choices as well, because it just really helped me to maximize that scallop square, because I was able to make a lot of frames with it. Now I am going to use I'm going to create a frame, but then I needed something on the back of it, because then you'll just see that dot pattern. And so I cut 4 of the same scallop square, that my frame, the same size as my frame, and then I just cut that out with white cardstock. And then I did use 3 of the heart balloons, because that will be the main design that was going to go kind of peeking in to the through the window. And instead of using my twine, I just decided to use a pen, because I didn't know how the bulkiness of it will, you know, affect the frame. And so I just used my pen to create the kind of string effect on my balloon. And so now I'm measuring my frame, the inside of the frame, to make sure that I center my sentiment. And I use that simple happy birthday stamp from the little block that I got from Stamps of Life. And this is new, so when I stamped it, I wasn't totally happy with the way it's stamped, but it's okay, because I'm using white cardstock. I could just turn it over and then stamp again. And now I was smart enough to kind of, you know, do it on scrap paper just to kind of see, and it was, the impression just wasn't there. And so I decided to use some nail file to kind of take out some of the rubber from the actual stamp, so that it will stamp better. And it's still not, I was still not happy with the way it stamped, but it will do. I mean, it's a new stamp, so I don't know what else can I say, but it will do. And so I'm just finishing off the rest of the frames, adding my hearts to it, and then doing this squiggly line as my string, and then putting the frame over it. I did use some foam adhesive on the frame, so that the frame part, the pattern paper, will be raised against the background. Now I'm ready to adhere this, and I will add a few more finishing touches, but that's basically my card number 5. If you like these videos, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and I hope that this inspires you to look at your stash and make your own card kits and then create some handmade cards with it. I love making these, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. Bye!